say out of all the people in the world that I know or I've interviewed, the person who I believe would have the highest level understanding as to what's really going on right now in the world, especially when it comes to the economic decline, the crisis that's going on, what crisis investing might look like as compared to the world before the whole coronavirus pandemic. So Paul Zane Pilzer, you've seen him in our Money Revealed docuseries. There's many accolades, but just know that he's one of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life. He is somebody who's been an economic advisor to 2 American presidents. He's written several best-selling books in economics, several of which have influenced me in extraordinary ways. And in addition was a professor of economics at NYU at New York University. And we could go on and on and on. He's also a serial entrepreneur that's had so many ventures that I probably could take an hour trying to list them all through his years. But earlier today, Paul started to talk to me about what was going on. I was like, can we please record this? It's something that I think we need to share with our audience. So for this Crisis Investing 2020 series, this is one that you really, really want to pay attention to get an understanding of context. So Paul, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Patrick. I want to state before we start, because things are changing so rapidly, that anything I say is old an hour later, a day later. Sometimes it's useful analyzing. So the first thing we need to say is today is Wednesday, March 25th. Looks like it's 4:31 p.m. The markets have just closed, stock market's closed, and we are beginning our interview. And I want anyone to, knowing even parts of this interview when you're editing, flash on the screen, please, the date and the time, because it may not be accurate tomorrow, and I have to throw out that disclaimer. We've certainly never, ever in our lifetime seen anything ever change this quickly. And I guess that's probably a good place to start, because you're here to talk about coronavirus, COVID, its impact on the economy, and more important for your viewers, what's the opportunity in the economy? Right. And that I'm pretty comfortable going through. I do feel a little like a bad prophecy. I can remember a little over 20 years ago when I got married. And I was working in Washington, I was teaching at NYU, bringing my girlfriend, now wife of 20 years. And Lisa said to me, well, you go to Washington, you go to the White House, you go to, what do you do? And we got married, like, are you gonna run away and go do all this stuff? And I said, Lisa, I spent 5 years back and forth working in Russia, the Soviet Union. The country I work with doesn't exist. So I have no expertise. It's useless. Everything I know about my way around the Soviet Union is completely useless. The country went away. It's not important anymore. It's its own little country. Who would have thought Russia would step up? And the only other time I'd be called out of retirement to say do something would be if there was a major banking crisis, because I was the pivotal point then on the savings and loan crisis from 1983 when it started to 1989 when I was the senior officer trying to fix it in the Reagan administration. And I got frustrated and went away and wrote a book, Other People's Money, which was the inside story of the S&L crisis, and in fact made my career at a very young age. So here we are today, that not only is Russia potentially a problem and back in the news as a world power, but banking crisis, I never expected to ever see or use my expertise or contacts. And what I've been doing the last few days is talking mainly, or they're calling me, bank regulators, current and past. Because how we're going to get through this from a banking standpoint has a lot to do with how we got through the financial crisis of 2007. No one remembers the biggest crisis before that was the S&L crisis of 1987. And of course, the stock market crisis in 87. I was literally and figuratively in the White House on Black Monday, working that day when everything crashed on Black Monday in 1987. So let's get started and talk about what's so different about this crisis than every other crisis. Almost as a disclaimer. Normally you have something called a depression and a recession. Recess implies a little bit, right? This way. Or a depression, you push in, and what happens when you take your finger off? It comes back out. Because that's how economy works. And we even call a big change up and down a depression because we know it's coming back out. It's a U. This isn't that at all. This is a V. We were going along and we fell, boom, like this. And of course, we'll talk a little bit in a minute, while the upside out of this is another boom straight up. But normally it's a U. It's a depression, and the forces are pushing it back up to come back. So it's scary at unbelievable levels right now, whether it be negative interest rates or so many other things we should talk about in setting the introduction to this. is we've never had the economy go to zero in less than a week. I characterize the world today as all of us are going to know the letters AC and BC. Now that may not mean a lot to you, but if you're a Christian, I bet you know what BC means, before Christ. In fact, I'm Jewish, I'm not Christian, but to my Muslim and Jewish friends, BC is a very significant time because the birth of Jesus Christ changed the whole world. And then we define any kind of event, we go, is that AD, Patrick, or BC you're talking about? We define that as the pivotal moment, the birth of Jesus Christ, as defining the rest of the world. Same thing right now. Just as you can tell me where you were, or maybe you can't because you're too young, but my people, my age, can say, where were they when Kennedy was shot? Where were they when Lee Harvey Oswald was shot? Where were they when the bombs came down on 9/11? And people remember exactly where they are. You're always going to remember now where you were BC, before coronavirus, and AC, after coronavirus, because so many things are going to permanently change, and so many things are going to come back and be like they were. But we define ourselves by BC and AC. And it's important to remember that AC and BC is very different for different people. It's everybody's date before coronavirus and after coronavirus it probably took place sometime in March. Someday in March, your stock market portfolio blew up, one of your children got sick, your grandmother got rushed for a COVID test. My date was, I don't even know the date, I know it was last Thursday at 2:31 p.m. when my wife texted me that my 15-year-old son, who is near death in and out of emergency rooms all week, does not have COVID. Still bad he has pneumonia, we gotta get him out of this, but for a week they were sure he had COVID. And that meant we were like a pariah in our lifestyle. I had a plumber coming to the house, do some work that needed to be done, they wouldn't enter the house. I had to tell them I have a sick child with definite pneumonia, maybe coronavirus. They go, sorry, see ya. And all of us, 4 kids, my wife and I, were blacklisted in a good way from people not wanting to come close to us. Now that he doesn't have COVID, we've got friends again. At least they're not running over to our house, but they're being more comfortable, like we're gonna not spread this disease. So BC and AC is different for everyone. It's defined as the day or moment in March that it really hit you, that this is something big that's gonna change the rest of your life. What's fascinating, so BC came along. We've never had anything where we just ripped the whole economy and ended it, which is really what we did. Now that's what I first thought. I went through a whole week thinking everything's over. Can't go to restaurants, can't open my Planet Fitness gyms. My wife and I are franchisees of Planet Fitness. We love that business. Can't leave my house. And I thought the world and the economy has gone to a halt. I'll jump ahead. In preparation for this interview, I went and called lots of people and I asked some questions. And one of the questions I asked was, I called a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund private equity guy who has 9 major companies, all billion-dollar companies in his portfolio. And they make different things. One's in food distribution, one's in manufacturing. And I called him up and I said, so how are you affected, your companies? He said, they're all the same. People are working from home, but they're figuring out how to get the work done. And what's your sales gonna be? Oh, normal sales, month of March. And he's got 9 companies at $1 billion sales level each. They're doing fine. And I realized that I'm living in a bubble. My service economy, I only meet people like Patrick. I see people like the restaurants who aren't serving me food. I looked at the whole bubble I lived, everything got shut down. He has a $10 billion portfolio of 9 companies. It isn't shut down. And the world's still buying stuff and he's getting orders from China right now. They're back in business. So on a world scale, the world is on today, March 25th, very rapidly, well, it's not recovering, it didn't get hit, as crazy as it sounds. So I thought the world is over, most companies are down, that's not the case. The world is down and out for the service economy, or for pieces of the economy that end up working together, like airlines. Airlines, by definition, airlines are not flying, or they're flying at levels with, I'm hearing 3 passengers on a plane if there are any people. And they're going broke really fast and they've already cut their flights by 50%. So they're gonna need a very serious bailout, which just happened an hour ago. It was a perfect time. Today is the day for many people that the bailout was passed. The bailout's pretty amazing what they're going to do. I'll just run through a few highlights since it's so current. The bailout goes to someone like me who has to make a decision. We lost, in 2 Planet Fitness gyms, we had $450,000 in monthly revenue. That went to 0. on March 18th when we closed our stores to protect our people, employees, and members from coronavirus. Now, that number disappeared. A couple things have happened. One, the Congress has passed a rule that says we're going to give money to the state's unemployment. And that unemployment money will be at least what your wages were. In some cases, and I haven't seen the detail, it may have a minimum wage on it because the Democrats wanted to tap that on. So if someone's earning $12 an hour, they may get more in unemployment insurance for 4 months, or most likely will get more, all the way up to $65,000 a year than they were earning. Next one, SBA. I was just reading the SBA website. The Small Business Administration, again, the rules are not out on this. They say, Mr. Pilzer, you have a Planet Fitness gym, you're a franchisee for them. Great. We're going to lend you up to $2 million per separate business you own. And each Planet Fitness gym is a separate business. We'll lend you $2 million. You got to sign personally on it. I go, I'm not happy about that, but it's my business I'm saving. And you got to pay a 30-year payback with a 10-year call. So I say, okay, I'll probably take that money. Why would I take that money if I don't need it? Well, here's what happens. If you pay interest and principal on that money for several years, 2, 3, 4 years, the SBA says it was a good deal for you, Paul, to take that money. And you were a good credit risk because for 4 years you haven't missed a payment. We're going to forgive the balance of all. So my $2 million loan, which might have $1.5 million left on it after 4 years, if I run my business and I keep my employees and I do all the things the government wants me to do, they're going to give me money and then forgive it. That's a grant. And right now I don't have the terms, but my law firms are working through those documents to find out under what, because I have no interest in borrowing more money, piling on debt that I got to pay back in 5 years, at least at my age. When I was younger, that would have been a great deal. But right now, I'll take the debt if you're going to forgive the principal. And what we're seeing, same thing, airlines are going to get a direct grant. We're going to have something to cure this that we really never had before. In 2007, we didn't use fiscal policy, buy things, give money, we used monetary policy. We tried to fix the banks and keep them from going under, and frankly did a very good job. Without me, I should say. I was there in the White House to fix it in '87. I wasn't there in 2007. I applaud the actions taken in 2007. Now, we're doing fiscal policy. We're shoring up the banking system, making sure that'll be covered. The big thing in my life was that when I sell a share of stock, most people don't notice this. They think they put it in cash. No, they put it in a money market account that buys federal securities. That's not cash, because your TD Ameritrade or your Fidelity or your Vanguard could go under. Turns out the Fed last Friday, March 18th, is guaranteeing that cash. So they're guaranteeing the cash account. Sorry I'm jumping around here because thoughts are coming to me of my own businesses and my own economic side. So the Fed is doing normal monetary policy and shoring up the banking system. But what we're really doing here is fiscal policy. We're going to give every unemployed person full wages or more. And this time they're going to cover part-time workers, they're going to cover gig economy workers, they're going to cover contractors, but you better have a record. What we learned in Louisiana, you remember the BP oil spill of a few years ago? In the BP oil spill, the government gave roughly, I'm going to say $90 billion of aid. And if you owned a little bodega that made sandwiches for the guys going out to work on the oil rigs, you could go to the government and say, I did 80,000 in sales last year. I made 40, please give me my 80 or give me my 40. Now, the government says, not so fast. Show me on your tax return that you made 80 grand. Well, I didn't report it all. Well, if you lied to the government 10 years ago, tough luck. Same thing here. In the bill that just passed Congress, you gotta have receipts. So basically what you put on your tax return as your income last year, you can get out of unemployment insurance, even if you were never an employee.
Thanks so much for being here and watching that video. And can I ask you to please subscribe to our channel so you can find out when we're posting new content. You'll be alerted right away when we do. To share this with people you think might benefit from the information, and certainly it helps us if you like the video. So if you like what you just saw, go ahead and hit that like button. And again, thank you so much for being here with me right now.